After watching Marlon Brando in The Godfather, you probably came to the realization that he turned into one of the greatest actors performing in one of the finest films ever made. So you can consider how bowled over fans had been while it became said that Brando wasn't glad with a number of his co-stars, how the cast of The Godfather observed a way to work collectively regardless of hating every other, stays the largest question within the hearts of fanatics. What made them hate every different? Let's check. Why Marlon Brando in no way forgave his The Godfather co-stars. When Brando took up his role within the Ford Coppola adaptation of Mario Puzo's ebook, he actually embodied the Vito Corleone character and became the terrifying mafia boss with plenty ease. And the cause this transformation regarded smooth became due to the fact Brando in real life styles had nearly grown up with a rebellious persona and broke the regulations. His private demons made it hard for him to find work, leading to many extra problems in his life. He became an outsider who had grown up in a bothered circle of relatives and suffered some tragedies that made him even more mysterious. You should understand that from a young age, Brando became already linked to the sector of enjoyment, appreciably performing. You may even argue that acting became in his blood, being the only son of a traveling salesman and a level actress. Unfortunately, his mother and father's contribution to his lifestyles went beyond creativity. Being a C, Brando's mother and father could not create that solid domestic that might nurture kids into wholesome adults. His father was often away traveling, and when he became around, he turned into abusive and made the home very harsh for his wife and children. His spouse, Brando's mother, took solace at the bottom of a bottle. As a younger child, Brando and his sisters had been the ones who needed to go from one local bar to any other, seeking out their mother with the intention to deliver her domestic whilst she became inebriated. This, in addition, broke Brando's strained courting along with his dad, and the boy became angry at the whole thing, at his father most particularly. He might maintain that anger in the direction of his dad for a long term. The guide turned into supposed to be Brando's first lesson on authority and lifestyles. However, he didn't supply, so Brando, even at a young age, used his expertise for copying humans to drag pranks. And soon, sufficient he got a popularity as a mischievous child. His parents' separation did not assist matters too. Even although they reconciled, Brando, who was excelling in sports and drama, struggled academically, performing poorly in maximum subjects and needed to repeat a year. However, teenage Brando turned into also behaving badly at college, which soon brought about his expulsion. Brando became already famous in school for his early passion for drama. Despite his instructional disasters, it was clean that he was top at performing. After high faculty, Brando became dispatched to Shattuck Military Academy, the identical faculty his father had attended. But he quickly rebelled and turned into placed on probation for disobeying an officer during training exercises. And even when he turned into constrained to campus as punishment, he selected to sneak into city and become caught. Maine College's school to vote for his expulsion. However, many students supported him, feeling that expulsion changed into an excessive amount of a punishment. This turned into when the academy invited him to go back the subsequent 12 months. However, he refused their provide, deciding on to drop out of high school instead. After leaving Shattuck, he took a summertime task digging ditches. His plan turned into to join the army at some point, but whilst he tried to enlist, he became disqualified because he failed the specified physical exam. He had suffered a knee damage from playing football at Shattuck, and this harm labeled him as unfit for military provider, finishing his plans to enlist. After failing to get into the army, 18 Marlon Brando moved to New York City to behave just like his sisters did. One of them commented on his choice on the time. He changed into a mission in a faculty play and enjoyed it, so he determined he might visit New York and look at performing because that turned into the only component he had enjoyed. He enrolled at the American Theater Wing Professional School and studied below a famous German director who almost molded Brando's acting fashion. During these early months in New York, Brando struggled plenty, particularly due to cash topics, and needed to stay with buddies to aid himself. But he'd changed into inclined to endure all of that for the possibility to behave. A pal explained that performing gave Brando a feel of belonging. In New York, he discovered attractiveness for the first time, as people praised his skills rather than criticizing him. something he hadn't skilled much in his troubled childhood. Brando became a dedicated scholar of Stella Adler, from whom he found out a unusual machine of appearing. His trainer found that he had herbal talent, and his feel of realism changed into very sharp, and it became clean early in his education. He had this insane ability to suppose deeply approximately a man or woman's perspective. Brando could subsequently dispel the claim that he'd become a method actor, criticizing all folks that use that device themselves. After getting his first performing roles in summer stock theater in Sayville, New York, on Long Island, he quickly gained a reputation for unpredictable and rebellious conduct, which were given him eliminated from a local new faculty, manufacturing. Despite this, he became noticed in every other neighborhood play in Sayville. After his Broadway debut, the New York drama critics named him Most Promising Young Actor for his overall performance as the bothered veteran in Truckline Cafe, even though the play was not a fulfillment. While some critics accused him of being hard, fellow actors often said his strategies were actually part of his craft, helping him deliver true and groundbreaking performances. In the following venture he launched into, he had a bad audition, however, still landed the process. During the pre-Broadway tour, Brando and co-star had many disagreements. The co-star, who was older and had a drinking hassle like Brando's mother, clashed with him. She stated, "He was a terrific young actor whilst he wanted to be the maximum of the time. I couldn't even pay attention him at the degree." Brando showed his push aside for this challenge by using behaving badly on degree. According to a degree supervisor, he tried the whole lot to smash it, including scratching his crotch and selecting his nostril. After a few weeks, Brando became ultimately fired. This became out to be an extremely good opportunity for him because it allowed him to take the role of Stanley Kowalski inside the film A Streetcar Named Desire. A co-celebrity Brando had labored with even grew to become down on function in A Streetcar Named Desire, but gave him a harsh but strong advice for the position of Stanley. She wrote a letter saying, "I realize of an actor who can play this brutish Stanley Kowalski character, a total pig of a man without a sensitivity or grace. Brando might be ideal. I just fired him from my play, The Eagle Has Two Heads, and I recognize for a fact he's looking for paintings." However, after you have the position, critics had been less impressed. One evaluate stated, Brando was still constructing his person and didn't make an effect. Brando's first film position became in The Men, in which he played a sour paraplegic veteran. He spent a month in mattress at the Birmingham Army Hospital in Van Nuys to put together for the role. The New York Times critic Bosley Crowther praised Brando's overall performance, announcing he changed into so bright, dynamic, and sensitive that it felt completely actual. It became round this time that the Korean War started out, and Brando, who had already finished surgical procedure on his knee, became no longer able to break out combating. But he failed to want to move, so whilst he went to the induction middle, he told the doctor he become psychoneurotic. After being dispatched to a psychiatrist, Brando defined that he were expelled from military faculty and had troubles with authority, and required inductions. Coincidentally, the psychiatrist knew a health practitioner friend of Brando's. As an end result, Brando prevented serving inside the Korean War. Focusing on movies, Brando began using cue playing cards in preference to memorizing his lines. Though many directors disagreed, Brando felt it made his performances feel greater, spontaneous, and practical. He conceptualized his memorizing in the following ways down to timbre basses. Coincidentally, the concept memorizing his strains could make him sound like he turned into actually repeating authors' phrases. He explained that using cue cards made it look like his person was attempting to find what to mention in place of handing over strains by means of reminiscence. Some co-stars believed Brando used the cards because he was lazy or could not memorize his strains. After he played Stanley Kowalski in A Streetcar Named Desire, his overall performance earned him his first Academy Award nomination for Best Actor. The role remains in large part taken into consideration one in every of his very excellent functions. The following year, he was nominated again for his function in Viva Zapata, a movie primarily based on the life of Mexican innovative Emiliano Zapata. The film informed the story of Zapata's humble beginnings, his upward thrust to strength inside the early 1900s, and his loss of life. Brando's subsequent film, Julius Caesar, acquired terrific evaluations. He played Mark Antony, and even as Maximum diagnosed his skills, some critics felt his mumbling and specific style showed a loss of simple-appearing abilities. When his casting became introduced, many were unsure about his capacity to succeed. However, Brando gave a robust overall performance, and one of the producers turned into so inspired that he presented Brando a full season on the Hammersmith Theater. However, he declined. A critic even praised his performance, saying, "It become like a furnace door commencing. The heat came off the display screen." I don't know, some other actor who may want to try this? Brando, for my part, brushed off his paintings at the film as asinine. Another instance of his endured traditional self-criticism, Brando quickly starred in The Wild One, using his very own Triumph Thunderbird 6 T-bike. The movie, which become his approximately motorcycle gangs taking on a small metropolis, become debatable for its violence. Time magazine criticized it, saying it only aimed to shoot adrenaline through the moviegoers on set. It was reported that Brando failed to get at the side of the Hungarian director Laszlo Benedek and his co-famous person Lee Marvin. Still, their film collectively becomes so a success that it inspired teen rebellion and made Brando a position version for the rising rock and roll in conjunction with future stars like James Dean and Elvis Presley. But Brando changed in two, on the course to greatness. He quickly received the Oscar for gambling Terry Malloy in On the Waterfront. His overall performance, supported through his chemistry with Ava Marie Saint and Kazan's Route, become extensively praised. Brando's performance was majorly hailed for its emotional depth. He had made it praiseworthy through taking part with Kazan to change a few components within the authentic script. For instance, where it had Brando's individual had him appearing with a gun pointed at him by his man or woman's brother, Charlie. But Brando argued that Terry wouldn't consider his brother might shoot him, so Kazan allowed the alternate. Such adjustments have been commonplace in the course of. Kazan later stated Brando's overall performance changed into awesome for its blend of longevity and gentleness, calling it the pleasant overall performance via an American actor and movie records. Huge reward from his director proper? But he wasn't the simplest one praising Brando. He received the Academy Award for Best Actor. On the Waterfront became both an important and industrial fulfillment. Incomes over $4 million in rentals on the North American field workplace. Critics, together with A.H. Wheeler of the New York Times, praised the film as powerful and exciting. Roger Ebert later referred to it as one of the most crucial movies in American cinema, including it to his first-rate films list. Despite the praise, Brando turned dismissive of his performance, saying that once seeing the movie he felt like a big failure. Perhaps Brando was just tough on himself and demanded more from every person, such as himself. He even had a tense courting with his celebrity Frank Sinatra, and this desire for perfection earned him a nomination for a Golden Globe for his overall performance in Bedtime Story. Brando did extra movies and shortly fashioned a partnership with Paramount to create his personal production employer, Pennebaker, with the intention of creating films that had social fee that might enhance the sector. The organization changed into named in honor of his mother, who had surpassed away in advance. Brando became deeply laid low with her demise, as she turned into the only man or woman who should give him approval. After her loss of life, Brando regarded to prevent worrying. He even made his father the pinnacle of Pennebaker, so he ought to get an opportunity to demean and decrease him. Brando quickly made his first movie as a director with the western One-Eyed Jacks. Originally Stanley Kubrick became directing, but he changed into fired early inside the procedure, and Paramount made Brando the director. Brando's tendency to take multiple retakes and deeply discover characters, which he used as an actor, carried over into his directing. This precipitated the movie's budget to go over. Paramount had predicted the film to take 3 months to finish. However, it took 6 months and the cost doubled to over $6 million. Brando's loss of revel in with enhancing additionally behind schedule the movie's put up production. Eventually, Paramount took manage of the venture. Brando's issue with the film enterprise continued to escalate during the filming of the film Mutiny at the Bounty. He changed into accused of intentionally causing issues with almost each part of the manufacturing. It changed into pronounced in an editorial titled $6 million Down the Drain, The Mutiny of Marlon Brando. And right here, what the director Louis Milestone stated: "The studio deserved what they got when they gave a ham actor a petulant baby. Complete control over an high-priced film." The movie almost caused MGM to head bankrupt, and although the task had other delays besides Brando's behavior, the accusation stuck with him. As a result, studios started to worry his hard reputation. Critics additionally started noticing his changing weight. Seeing the tide flip, Brando had become greater focused on making his personal life greater comfortable. Lost hobby in his career and started to use performing as a manner to make money. People criticized him for taking roles in films that many felt had been beneath his expertise, or for not fully embracing better roles. And this was a movie approximately Italians. After many well-known directors grew to become down the venture, Evans hired Francis Ford Coppola. Coppola became Italian-American and become also less costly. Coppola had a listing of actors in thoughts for the position of the Don in The Godfather, which include Ernest Borgnine and Frank DeCova. However, he ultimately decided that best the fine actor would do, narrowing it down to Laurence Olivier or Marlon Brando. When Coppola driven for Brando, the studio became hesitant about choosing Brando due to his beyond reputation and container workplace disasters. In reality, Paramount's president Stanley Jaffe became firmly against Brando, but after Coppola satisfied Brando to do a makeup screen, take a look at, the studio in the end agreed. Brando were given the position of Vito Corleone, the Don, in The Godfather, and this marked a turning point in his career. Brando became forged for a low charge of $50,000, but he also obtained a percentage of the movie's income, which later have become tons more worthwhile. For the solid, Coppola initially desired Burt Reynolds for the position of Michael Corleone in The Godfather, but Brando opposed it. He threatened to leave the film if Reynolds was solid, main Coppola to pick Al Pacino as a substitute. This Brando's dislike for Reynolds needed to do with a few incidents from their beyond, especially while Reynolds mocked Brando's fashion on The Twilight Zone. Reynolds, who didn't like being in comparison to Brando, subsequently grew a mustache to distinguish himself. Brando sooner or later burst again into the top 10 and earned himself a second Pleasant Actor Oscar. Despite lacking out on The Godfather, Reynolds had success with another movie that identical year. The anxiety persisted even after. Brando persisted to antagonize Reynolds, stopping him from becoming a member of the Solid Apocalypse Now, in which Brando insulted Reynolds, calling him narcissistic and criticized his fake behavior. Later, Reynolds got revenge through mocking Brando on Saturday Night Live. However, in interviews, Reynolds downplayed the feud, saying he became flattered by way of Brando's reaction. Brando's relationship with human beings like Reynolds persevered to expose how unforgiving he became as a person. His private life became very problematic. He changed into concerned with many fanatics. There were rumors that he had a suicide attempt. He married actress Anna Cashfay, however, soon after commenced an affair together with his co-megastar Rita Moreno, which lasted for over 8 years. During this time, Brando additionally married Mexican-American actress Movita Castaneda and Polynesian actress Tarita Teripe years later. He was even connected to famous women like Marilyn Monroe and Jackie Kennedy. By the time he became finished, he had 16. Recognized are those who accept as true with their extra. Unfortunately, like his personal father, Brando became now not very worried in his children's lives. The success of The Godfather became more than sufficient for Brando to live out the rest of his existence, but he selected to keep making extra movies. In his very last completed movie, The Score, his overall performance was nicely received. But in 2001, Brando was hospitalized for pneumonia. 3 years later, he signed up with director Rita Bailey to work on a task called Brando and Brando. He became nonetheless operating at the script up till per week before his dying. Brando passed away in 2004 from respiration failure due to pulmonary fibrosis and congestive heart failure on the UCLA Medical Center. The reason of loss of life became, to start with, saved private, for confidentiality reasons. He also had diabetes and liver, most cancers. Marlon Brando cemented his place as one in every of Hollywood's finest figures, yet his existence became a war of personal demons and professional problems. We lovers bear in mind the high-quality icon, and some of his colleagues bear in mind him as one too. However, there are those who aren't absolutely over the moon about who the man changed into as a person.